Are stingrays overpowered? They might be. I honestly don't know almost anything about stingrays, so maybe. I mean, they have. Is it poison or venom? I forget which one's which, but I think they have one of those. This is a video by TierZoo, and it has been a minute since I've watched a video by TierZoo. Ooh. Hammerhead.
Thanks to Idle Obelisk Miner for sponsoring this video. Sharks are some of the most fearsome DPS builds the game has ever known. Their high mobility, insane damage.
Am I crazy or is his voice different? Am I crazy? I feel like his voice used to be different, but it has been a minute, so I don't know.
The most fearsome DPS builds the game has ever known. Their high mobility, insane damage, and utterly broken perception stat make them an absolute run-ender for any player not prepared to deal with them. Yet, of the cartilaginous fish faction, sharks comprise only around half of all playable characters. What's going on with this other half? While sharks are overall pretty straightforward, rays have some of the strangest, most interesting abilities and strategies in the entire game. But
I never realized how much they look like sharks from like the head-on perspective. I never realized that. Huh. Because they do have a shark-like resemblance. Like it's the eyes and that mouth. It could be shark. It is shark-like.
Just most interesting abilities and strategies in the entire game.
Oh, that mouth.
But how do they actually fare in the meta? Stingrays have a lot of interesting attributes, but without a doubt their most notable trait is their venomous barb.
Yeah,
this is essentially a giant serrated tooth attached to their tail, capable of inflicting devastating damage in the blink of an eye. So naturally, every new player looks at that and thinks they'll be able to one-shot the final boss if they spec into it. But, grievous as this attack may be, relying on a stinger as your primary combat move is a massive noob trap. Stingers have the worst accuracy rating of any weapon in the game. They frequently whiff entirely during combat, and even when they do connect, they often land as a glancing blow that does a fraction of the move's base damage. It's just very difficult to aim a weapon when it's as far as possible from your character's eyes and center of mass. Against any target smaller than the stingray itself, it's borderline impossible to connect with this. So for a lot of novice stingray players, they find themselves panic mashing the attack button and dealing 0 damage. Now, this isn't to say stingers can never be viable, but look at the builds that actually make them work. They either spec heavily into accuracy bonus perks, or they immobilize the target with a grab first, and then use their stinger at point-blank range. Insects get away with stinger spam because their compound eyes perk buffs their accuracy high enough to land the attack. And scorpions, of course, have powerful claws that can hold their target in place for as long as they need. The stingray has neither, and as a result, it really cannot rely on its high damage to ward off attackers. And this is reflected in the rest of the stingray's kit. When a player's toxic defenses really are a serious deterrent, they tend to not also waste points on camouflage, and prefer brightly colored palette swaps. Now, while the stingray's combat prowess is less impressive than it looks, this doesn't mean the build itself is low-tier trash. So, how do their other traits compare? As far as mobility goes, rays have a truly unorthodox movement kit. Most marine vertebrates
That is such a silly way to move.
Rays have a truly unorthodox movement kit.
I don't know why it reminds me of how they used to like animate cartoon characters like skedaddling. I don't know why it reminds me of that though.
Most marine vertebrates rely on their caudal fins as their primary way of generating thrust. But because stingrays have opted for a tail stinger, this option is unavailable to them. Instead, they were forced to put all of their evolution points into buffing the size and strength of their pectoral fins, turning them into these massive wing-like structures. Most other builds use pectoral fins primarily just for steering, and by buffing them up to be capable of generating any meaningful speed, rays have also cranked their turn speed way up, making them incredibly nimble and capable of changing directions quicker than almost any other build in the game.
Like a car.
Which is really neat because even when maxed out, their actual top speed remains pretty mid. So while the Stingray's overall mobility is pretty solid, in practice, actually escaping combat requires a lot of skill to pull off, as rather than simply speeding away from an attacker, they must dodge the attack itself and attempt to hide during the attack's end lag. Which brings me to my next point. The Stingray's stealth stat is excellent, with an asterisk. The Stingray's flat shape gives it a massive advantage on stealth checks when attempting to hide on the seabed.
But I'm guessing
by lying flat.
I'm guessing that the caveat is only if the surrounding nature is good. They probably can't hide very good in a coral forest, can they? Or coral bed? What are coral things called?
Against the seafloor, and perhaps even slightly into the seafloor, they can become almost completely undetectable. It's so good that most of the time when a player is hit by their sting attack, it's because they accidentally stepped on or bumped into the ray, rather than deliberately dug it out. However, there's a reason most fish opt for a body plan that minimizes their horizontal silhouette. And this is because in the water, shadows are an extremely important part of the calculus when it comes to stealth, since shadows are not just visible on the seafloor, but the entire water column. A wider frame means a bigger shadow, and so anytime the ray is anywhere other than flush against the seafloor, such as when it's moving, it's actually one of the least stealthy builds in the game. This can be somewhat mitigated by sticking as close as possible to the bottom when repositioning, but this comes with its own set of risks and doesn't fully solve the issue. Another issue with their stealth is not so much an issue with the Stingray build itself, and more of a problem with a common strategy that both sharks and rays employ, which is to party up with smaller fish players. The larger shark or ray gains resistance to parasites as the fish help pick them off, and the fish gets free XP from eating the parasites, plus any scraps the ray leaves behind from its own meals. The problem is, these fish tend to stick around even when the Stingray tries to hide, and since their stealth stat is way worse, they can end up giving away.
They found us, bro. They found us, bro. They found us. Come on, come out. They found us.
The ray's location, even when it's otherwise completely hidden. Luckily, similar to their stinging barb, their camouflage really only matters on the defensive. Neither ability comes into play for hunting, as most stingrays prey upon crustaceans and shellfish, using a combination of suction and crushing mouthparts to dispatch them despite their tough armor. So, while I do think the Stingray build has some flaws, it is at least a solid counter to crabs, which is important in such a carcinization-heavy meta. Just like sharks, stingrays have the incredibly powerful perception.
I don't know why. When I thought stingrays, I never thought they ate animals. I don't think I never pictured them eating anything. I just thought they existed. That is a horrifying image.
Boosting perk electroreception, which allows them to detect prey moving behind cover. Arguably overkill given that they're hunting snails and crabs, but it certainly does get the job done. Anyway, overall the Stingray is certainly no low tier, and all of its abilities are powerful in a vacuum. But this is one of those cases where a more focused game plan ends up being vastly more viable than a mix of strong but non-synergistic traits. I'd place the Stingray in C tier. But not all rays opt for such an unrefined strategy. Some rays completely drop the stinging barb perk and instead go all in on optimizing the ray's mobility. These are the devil rays, including the mobula ray, devilfish, and most importantly, the giant manta. Their larger, pointed wings take the ray's acrobatic abilities to the absolute max, allowing them a degree of turn control even greater than that of dolphins and sea lions. Just as with stingrays, this is great for dodging attacks, but also boosts the efficiency of their filter feeding. I poke fun at a lot of filter feeders for being lazy AFK XP farming builds, and part of the reason for this is that when filter feeding, most of them have to move through a cloud of plankton fully, then turn and head back around again if they want to make another pass.
To do.
Mantas are so agile that they can literally just spin to win, shredding through resource nodes without ever needing to leave and reset position, turning filter feeding into a much more active process, which is what enables them to power level to such massive sizes faster than, say, a whale shark. The cephalic fins on their head also help direct the flow of ocean water directly into their mouths, boosting their harvesting efficiency even further. With no damage-dealing attacks, mantas have to be prepared to tank a few hits. Though their mobility stat is solid, anything this large will need at least a little bit of time to build up speed. Thankfully, the manta's premium HP stat gives it plenty of health to work with when attacked, allowing them to absorb even the most devastating offensive moves. The Manta's other stats are also shockingly high, with an intelligence stat higher than any other fish, and a stealth stat way higher than it needs to be, high enough that Mantas even have a mid-level version of the color change ability, which they use mostly for communication to coordinate team strategies. So, while Stingrays in general I'd rank as C tier, I'm placing the Manta Ray specifically
Where are
in A
bats
tier.
ranked?
In addition to the
I forget where he ranked bats. Better be high up.
Manta, there are a few other Stingray side grades that are worth highlighting.
Okay.
I wish there was enough footage of these other builds in action to do a full tier list style video, but unfortunately decent gameplay footage is super limited. Anyway, there are two builds that I think are taking the Ray playstyle in interesting new directions and solving some of the shortcomings of the base Stingray. The first is the Porcupine Ray.
Ooh.
While a piercing barb is powerful, having spines everywhere ensures all incoming attacks are punished automatically, rather than relying on the gamble of swinging your stinger. The only trade-off here is movement speed, as spikes increase hydrodynamic drag. But stingrays aren't super reliant on speed anyway, given how slow crabs and snails are.
That is
I think it's well worth the cost, and I wouldn't be too shocked to see this technique catch on with the broader player base soon. There's a reason pufferfish and lionfish are high tier. Spikes are great, but what would be even better would be dealing damage to an attacker before they even make contact. Enter the Electric Ray, which generates a damaging electric field around itself, just like the electric eel does. This powerful defense reliably hits opponents in any direction, and can be used for hunting as well. Because the Electric Ray never had any need to spec into a stinging barb, it never respec'd to remove evolution points from its caudal fin, giving it much greater speed and acceleration. The shock move has a high stamina cost, but skilled players can use this to great effect, and there aren't many scenarios where it's not at least somewhat useful. It's especially potent against sharks because their electrosensibility actually amplifies incoming electric-type damage, making shock-based weapons one of their biggest weaknesses. Both of these builds could definitely argue for a spot in the high tiers. And honestly, the Electric Ray's favorable matchup against tiger sharks makes me even consider giving it S tier. The Manta Ray's efficient resource harvesting ability is one of the most interesting aspects of its kit. Efficiency is the name of the game, and it's also one of the most fun parts of this new mobile game I've been playing.
Okay, that is the end of the video. If you want to do that, do that. QR code, yeah. If you or someone you know will play the Stingray build, let me know what you think of them down below.